physics video. Yay! Alright, so I'll read some comments, but I guess first I'll just do a little rambling, generally, on the subject. There are a couple of problems with this whole relativity thing, right? I mean, there's paradoxes created, where if you have enough speed, you have these circumstances where simultaneous events aren't simultaneous anymore, and you can reverse the order of events from different frames of reference and all this other stuff. And I don't even see the point of it anyway. I don't know why Newton went there. I don't know why Einstein went there. I don't know why they felt any need to say, in any circumstance, the laws of physics are the same, no matter how much velocity you have. No, well, that's relative in the sense that, yes, little changes in speed aren't going to matter, but big changes in speed might matter. And there was just no reason, in my opinion, for them to go there. And I think clearly big changes in speed are going to have a tremendous effect on you can just logically understand it. If you're going half the speed of light, and you shoot a flashlight ahead of you, the beam of light is not going to escape you by the speed of light. You are now moving half the speed of light. It's moving the speed of light. It will not escape you at the speed of light. You will maintain a connection to it. It doesn't get your momentum. Light doesn't retain the momentum of the object that produces it. So whatever movement something's doing, when the light goes out from it, the light does not have the momentum of the thing. So if the thing's going this way and it shoots light out this way, the light doesn't keep moving. That I think I've proven, I've demonstrated, that every time you look at some celestial body, you know you're seeing the light it produced whatever minutes ago in a position it's no longer in. You're seeing its old position, you're not seeing its current position. And if the light was retaining momentum, you'd be seeing its current position. So light would be instantaneous from your perspective, because you would see things in their current position, not their past condition. So there's your proof right there, that light does not maintain momentum. So even when Einstein was doing thought experiments with light reflecting off mirrors in trains moving very fast, and having the back of the train catch up to, hit the light first before the front of the train would, because the front is moving away, there would be no frame of reference where that's a simultaneous event. From no perspective could it possibly be a simultaneous event. From every perspective, it's just going to be a fact, okay, that the light's not going to have the momentum of the train, and that whatever movement of the other matter's taken place relative to the light, it's going to have an impact on when the thing is going to impact the light. If you're moving, if you're moving towards something and something's moving towards you, you'll change the time it takes for the two of you to meet each other. It's just a fact. So relativity fails if they don't acknowledge the fact that light doesn't retain momentum. That light only has one momentum, and that's its angular momentum and no other. It only cares where it's going, and it only intends, so to speak, it goes there in a straight line unless something else screws it up, and that's it. At the speed of light, of course. All photons. Again, we have to say photons. We have to quit saying light speed and say photon speed. So anyway, here's the circumstance, right? You have this world we live in where we see everything is kind of, something needs to bang into something, all these force laws, in the sense that we can see them, and they usually have something to do with some sort of direct interaction between things. So this one thing, gravity and magnetism, we don't see it. It's invisible, the mechanism. And so what do? Instead of saying, well, it's an invisible mechanism, we say space is bent and warped and all this kind of stuff. So it's a place where we sit there and break the rules, essentially. Everywhere else we say somebody had to hit it. It didn't fall over for no reason. something banged into it. And here we are in gravity, and we throw out the banged into it explanation, and I'm saying for bad reasons. I mean, illogical reasons. Reasons that have to do with the momentum of light, and the fact that light doesn't have momentum from the body is producing it. So let's just retain here an understanding that this, this whole idea of gravity from space being bent requires you to create a convergence, which, in 3 dimensions. Okay, Einstein's dimpled space thing doesn't work unless you're in a gravitational field that you're demonstrating it in. So it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless you already are in gravity. And so if you're going to 3-dimensionalize it, you're basically creating what the physicists call a convergence, which means you have to be pulling something. You're draining a fluid and down, kind of a thing. So you've got to be eating space, essentially. So you're saying there's some sort of material space eater. At the same time, you're saying E equals mc squared, which is essentially the same thing as saying m equals E, mass equals energy. And yet you have no evidence of this space eater left over. So if you blow up matter, if you particularize it, you'll get all these photons flying out. So we understand the photons are E. Where's the space eater? Are you saying photons can eat space? I'm just saying. I mean, clearly you could just take the basic model I'm giving you and you could just make it opposite. You could say that, space is solid and photons are holes. And you could play this kind of game. But I'm just saying, why play the game? Why just go with the more sensible, straighter line conclusion, that the photons are the thing and the space is just the distance between the things. So anyway, so the other thing is the whole inverse square thing, right? Now, is it just a coincidence, I guess, or maybe this is something that is, there's a logical continuity to this reasoning, but I'm just saying that it does seem suspicious that this space-eating gravity thing is exactly the same proportions as the visual reality, where if I move an object away from you, that's inverse square. The fact that this thing gets smaller and smaller and smaller as a percentage of a field, that's the same proportions as which gravity and magnetism work. This thing gets smaller and smaller by the same exact proportion. So it just happens to work out to be the same as the visual reality. What other argument is there? Yeah, well, I just think the E equals mc squared should be kind of the end. We should just end the conversation right there. Just acknowledge that, yes, energy is what's creating mass, and it's a mechanism through which it creates mass. And the mechanism, in my opinion, is that energy is energy when the photons are free. So when they're separated by a wavelength, okay, so when they're in the form of visible light or radio waves or even cosmic rays, they have a separation. But when they're in certain configurations, there's no separation, no wavelength between the photons. And so when photons are stuck next to each other, like I think gamma particles may be, an example of something. You could just think of 2 photons stuck together and spinning right on next to each other. So they're both going the speed of light, but they're just stuck, spinning in a circle. So they wouldn't have any angular momentum as light, in the sense that they're just spinning. But they'd also, theoretically, it'd be hard to imagine how you could move them without separating them a little. Because they're already moving the speed of light. And so they're kind of stuck in space. So you have to make something a little bigger to be able to move it. But anyway, that's a whole different subject. But you could say that would be the kernel of mass. Would be some kind of, once you stick a couple of photons together without any wavelength between them, then you've created something we call mass or matter. Because it can be broken into energy. for one reason, and for the second reason, its speed now is going to be altered because it can be in a configuration. Alright, so anyway, and the other key reason why this is a good explanation is that creates the convergence. So it does all that stuff, having this photonic pressure, and also gives you a way of making a convergence that works for magnetism. So now you've tied gravity to magnetism, which you can't do with the warped space model. So I think that's a pretty significant plus on my side, on the argument for defending the photon pressure model. So now in the last video I've explained why Feynman was wrong to think about photons as being rain, because they're not rain, especially thinking about the photons that create gravity as rain, because the photons that create gravity are not absorbed by the thing they go through. The gravity photons go through the object like light goes through glass in a sense, and all it changes is the angular momentum, the internal structure of the thing, and compels it to vibrate, and which it can vibrate in a direction if there's no pressure on that side. So it just changes the angular momentum of itself. When you move, when gravity pushes you down, it's not pushing you. What it's doing is changing your configuration in such a way that most of your photons are now pointed towards the center of the Earth. That the arrangement of the matter is now vibrating in that direction. You're going to the center of the Earth. It's making your matter point that way. That's why you retain velocity in space. It's because your matter is changed by acceleration, and it will remain changed. The gyroscopes will remain in the same position until they're altered by new acceleration. That's the rule. Okay, the gyroscopes stay where they are until you create a force of acceleration, which gravity is. So until the thing enters a force of acceleration, it will maintain its position. There has to be something to turn the gyroscope once the gyroscope has been pointed in a direction. And essentially you could argue that the electron is creating a gyroscope of sorts in its orbit. Another point of the electrons I keep neglecting to make is that this whole speed argument about how fast electrons are moving it gets kind of complicated. And I mean, I could argue overtly that the speed of light, something traveling the speed of light would be impossible, just because if you just think about an electron, having let's say it just had a round orbit, that's one thing, but even if you stretched its orbit, to make it move faster, the problem is it still has to go the downstroke. You know what I mean? It's going the upstroke at the speed of light, let's say, but it still has to use all this time to go backwards. So, as soon as you hit 50% of the speed of light, even with an electron moving the speed of light, you're going to be in trouble, because you still have to do this 50% thing. So as soon as you go over 50%, you're going to have a real problem, because the photons are going to start separating, and you're going to end up with free photons instead of bound photons, and this whole thing's going to fall apart. But obviously most electrons, not obviously, but as I understand it, most electrons are not moving as fast as that. Only the ones in radioactive elements are moving speeds that might be close to the speed of light. And so most are doing the spinning thing as they're going. So they're spinning as they go around, which consumes their speed of light, so their overall movement is much slower than the speed of light. But this, again, you have to undo that spin as you get closer and closer to the speed of light. So I think you're still in big trouble, and I still think you're never going to be able to go more than 50% the speed of light. So I guess as a prediction, I would say that anyone arguing that something's moving faster than 50% of the speed of light, they're making a mistake. In some of these high speeds, they say that galaxies are flying at the end of the universe. Those are based on the fact that they're saying, that there's a bunch of extra space being created in the space. So they're not really moving any faster. They're really not moving 50% of the speed of light. They're just saying the space between us and them is more space is being pushed in. So obviously their speed, though, can't possibly be going the speed of light, just the space is being increased. So the distance between us is being increased, but it's being increased by new space being injected into space. As silly as that sounds. So certainly still from the perspective of the galaxy thing, it's not going anywhere near the speed of light. It's just new space that's creating redshift. But that's a whole other subject, because I don't even think it is redshift. It has to be some other kind of preposterous amount of shift to be able to claim you're going fast as the speed of light. You're not just redshifted, you're shifted, you know, down to like whales are going to be able to hear where you are. You're shifted so much. Anyway, so I just thought I'd throw that in. This is just one of those, you know, Occam razors thing. You go with the simple answer. You go with the one, you know, why not go with the one that solves the magnetism problem also, fits with all the rest of the material world we know, where bowling balls roll on wood and all that kind of stuff. You know, why create the magical stretched space answer when you don't need to? It's like the God thing. You know, why invent the idea of a God when you don't need to invent the idea of a God to explain the circumstance? So anyway, E equals M, and M equals E, and energy is a photon. Can you show me energy in the world, and I'll show you a photon making it behind it. There's nothing else. There's photons. That's energy. There's things moving the speed of light. That's energy. There's nothing else. And the energy can be trapped in what we call matter. Alright. So I'll read some of this shit. But the observable universe, as far as it can only be... But the observable universe as it is can only be because of bent space. I guess you need some commas in here. Many far off, you know, says you. It can only be because of bent space. Where's that? Oh, there's a rule? Gee, I didn't know that. It's impossible without bent space? No, I don't think it's impossible. If you come up with some other explanation for gravity, then there's no problem whatsoever. Many far-off objects and phenomena are only observed as they are because of bent space, ignoring time. Well, you can't ignore time. There are several documented distortions that are only explained by bent space or lensing. Well, lensing can be explained without bent space, so again, why, you know, I can explain lensing, and a lot of things have lensing, okay? A needle can create lensing. A lot of things can create lensing. And the fact that there is lensing in space in high gravity areas isn't inconsistent with some other explanation of gravity. Again, we're talking about the convergence, not about what creates the convergence. We're talking about what creates the convergence, not the fact that there is a convergence. So the fact that the gravity gets higher, and that higher gravity may impact the movement of light through it, is perfectly consistent with what I'm arguing. I'm arguing that there's a bunch of energy, okay, that's only going to affect, see, like I said, you can affect two things. You know, energy, you can absorb energy, or you can be affected by it. Those are your two options. You know, energy comes in, energy goes out, and you're both changed by the interactions. You can interact with energy and be changed in the sense that your direction is changed. There's no destruction of the energy. There's no conversion in a sense of the energy. The energy is all the same. You're just exchanging direction. And then there's this thing where you can absorb energy. These are different things. So obviously when light is being lensed, it's not being converted. It's just having its angular momentum changed. And you know, my argument is that light doesn't affect light. Photons don't affect photons, generally speaking, free ones. But obviously ones trapped in these kind of configurations will. And in a dense gravitational field, one could argue that it's probably likely that that dense gravitational field is going to possess a lot more electrons and a lot more other particulate matter that has been sucked in by the convergence, right? The pressure has been pushing, and the density of the microparticles that are being pulled in by the gravity is going to be very high in high gravity areas, and that there would be all kinds of opportunity for light to be lensed. So lensing doesn't have anything to do with my counter argument. My theory doesn't say lensing doesn't happen. There are several documented as lensing. I fail to see how this can be described by simple photons. Well, again, do you fail to see that lensing takes place with a lot of very small objects, that the light does bend around the surface of the object without any gravity being involved whatsoever by other atomic forces? Do you accept that it happens through the distortions in glass? So I don't really need to make this argument, okay? Lensing happens in lots of ways, and for you to say that the only way it can happen in the universe is because of bent space, I think is a rather arrogant statement. So, enough said. Alright, good models. This is Shadow Wolf, the old ones. Yeah, whatever. Good models don't just explain things, they make predictions. Well, again, I'll predict that there isn't anything really going 50% the speed of light, any matter traveling at those kind of speeds. I'll predict that someday they'll figure out that accelerators aren't really smashing particles into each other. They're not really breaking matter, they're making matter. Because what they're basically doing is taking matter, turning it into energy, smashing the energy into each other, and then saying, look what we made. But by the time they've accelerated the matter to anywhere close, what we need is a decelerator. That would be pretty cool, right? So if they could make the accelerator and then they could make a decelerator to decelerate what they made before they smash it, then they'll see that the thing they get back won't be the same thing they accelerated. Because the thing they accelerated was annihilated by being accelerated. That's my prediction. Someday they're going to figure that out. Alright, make predictions, and in physics they make qualitative predictions. Well, I don't even know what that means. Quantitative, sorry. If your model is only good for qualitative, explanations of phenomena, then you aren't doing physics. Well, it says you're the god of physics. You get to say that all models are no good unless they have some kind of complex math behind them. No, I'm saying there's lots of models, of pendulums, there's lots of physical things that illustrate phenomenon, and there's nothing wrong with using those models. There's nothing wrong with the little kinetic balls to illustrate things. Nothing wrong with those things at all, and you're just an arrogant piece of crap. You are doing Aristotelian philosophy. Well, again, yeah, right, based on the fact that Newton already did the math. Again, what do you want me to do? You want me to take credit for Newton? Or do you want me to actually observe all of the stars? Should I spend years collecting my own observational data and then show to you that it's the inverse square law and that it's perfectly proportional to visual references? Should I do all that, or should I just say post a link to Newton? Okay, because it perfectly adequately explains the circumstance, except add to those equations a constant for the fact that gravity moves at the speed of light and isn't instantaneous. Yeah, so add a reference for that into Newton, and then add some sort of reference for how much energy the sun's throwing out, the photons, and then there, you're done, okay? Satisfied, you have all the math you need to play with, and it doesn't mean a motherfucking thing. Okay, the point is, like I said, and where's your math explaining exactly how matter creates bent space? How exactly does it do that? So I throw a little bit of extra mass onto something, boom, and all of a sudden I've bent the space more. So how exactly did that little addition of matter do that? There is no gravity well to be created, right? It's a convergence. So somehow by me throwing this at the matter, and letting it stick to it, somehow it's all of a sudden draining more space, pulling more space in. That's your wacky explanation. Where's your math explaining how it did that when all of the mass, when it's destroyed, turns into energy. What exactly made that hole? What exactly was pulling the space? Yeah, you won't give me an explanation. Alright. Then you aren't doing physics. Anyway, if you can't work out your model quantitatively, or propose an experiment to test it. Well, I am going to propose experiment. I'm certainly looking to go with Einstein's experiments, right? He's got all these dopey thought experiments. He doesn't have real experiments, right? They're all projections of what will happen if you're going the speed of light. Well, okay, I'll make up a whole bunch of crap about what will happen if you're going the speed of light, but you're never going the speed of light, so it would be a waste of your time and my time for me to do that. But yes, I'm saying that your speed is absolute. Okay, that the gyroscopes they are pointing somewhere, and that there probably is a way to detect it. There probably is, and I have to work that out, but yeah, I'm working on it. But I certainly can point out the fact that, I can demonstrate to you, I suppose, that, that astrological bodies are, we're not seeing them where they are right now. I think everybody would agree with that. So I can point out to you that light doesn't retain momentum. Go get a PhD in physics. Well, you go get a fucking PhD in manners, asswipe. If you actually think you are capable of rewriting the last 100 years of theoretical physics from the ground up, then that should be no challenge to you. Well, I'm not exactly rewriting it. I'm re-arguing arguments that were wrong. Okay, I mean, Feynman's argument that raindrops and photons can be analogized to each other was stupid. Okay, it was for a guy who knows physics. He should have said, "Wait a minute, I can't let these analogies go too far, and I'm going too far when I start comparing photons to raindrops." And so he should have worked a little bit harder on his challenge. Okay, his challenge fails, and none of you people seem to be able to understand the difference between energy that's absorbed and energy that interacts and changes angular momentum. Angular momentum can be changed without affecting energy. That's how we got to the moon. Okay, we didn't have enough fuel to go to the moon. We used the moon's gravity to get to the moon. And if we didn't circle the moon, we could have done it without putting any energy in or requiring any energy out. So if we didn't bother orbiting the moon and we just used the moon to get back, it could have been a perfectly no energy expended. We could have gone into the gravity with a certain energy. We would have come out of the gravity with the same amount of velocity, and we would have turned around without expending any energy or using any energy. We would have just exchanged angular momentum with the moon. Asshole. Okay. 100 years, the ground up, then you should be no challenge for you. Well, like I said, it is no challenge for me. As I'm demonstrating, it wasn't much of a challenge to recognize that maybe it's not a good idea to compare photons to raindrops. Then once you can do these things, go publish your model in Science or Nature. Well, I intend to have it published eventually, that's right, but Science or Nature has to pay attention first, right? So first I have to publish it in other places, and so I'm publishing it online, and I'm asking little weasels like you to make a real argument that has to do with some kind of physical reality, some sort of reason, some sort of equation that says this can't be the truth, some sort of observed fact that says this can't be the truth. Okay, I've demonstrated that Feynman's argument is no good. I've demonstrated that the Wikipedia arguments about heat are no good because it's not absorbing the photons. The photons are not absorbed. They can't generate heat because they're not absorbed. Okay, they're only changing angular momentum. They're changing the direction of the fish. You can change the direction of fish all day long and it won't create any heat at all. Okay, it's when you change their velocity that you're in trouble. It's not even a correct thing to say, right? Because the photons, if you change the velocity of the You can't you can't change any of it. The photons are already in motion. You can't generate any heat by changing direction. It's just not possible. They're already moving. The only way you can generate heat is to break the substance. You have to expel fish. You have to kick fish out of the frickin' school. All right. You have to give up energy. You have to release it. Alright, dear Gary, I used to be a champion of gene-centric view of Richard Dawkins. You were a fiery defender of Dawkins, and you were right about that, in what you said, and you commanded respects. Dawkins, Pitbull, blah, 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 powers. But recently, I don't know what happened to you. Your videos are not just factually wrong. Oh, this is, you people with all your little slogans now. You have all your little cute sayings. But they are slowly going insane in their content. Well, you haven't made a counter-argument of any kind whatsoever, so bravo. This is not the Gary I remember. Well, I don't even remember you, so who fucking cares? Okay, so now he's going to try to make an argument. Richard Feynman worked at Los Alamos and with a cluster of other prestigious research scientists and physicists. Well, so that's all you got to know, right? The Pope went to Pope school. Gee, how's that? So yeah, I guess we all got better listen to him because he went to all kinds of Pope schools. I'm sorry, I mean, but I can't do any better than playing the Feynman clip and pointing out how he was wrong. Can I do any better than that? Is there some other thing I can do for you? I've drawn you goddamn fucking pictures. What else do you want me to do? He was wrong to think photons are raindrops. Photons don't have momentum in anything but one direction. You can't run into photons, so to speak. God damn, those men were schooled in types of physics called quantum field theory. No, it was called quantum electrodynamics, but fuck you, whatever. This field theory shit is just shit, actually. Quantum field theory is what you get when you unite quantum mechanics and special relativity. Which they haven't done successfully, douchebag. At that time in history, they were developing a field theory description of the nucleus of the atom. Well, again, their stupid theory of the nucleus of the atom doesn't have shit to do with this conversation, because guess what? Most of what goes on in fucking atoms is happening in electrons. Electrons is where the action is, so to speak. And yes, it'd be very nice to know what holds electrons to the nucleus, and that's really the whole game. But, in terms of creating atomic structure and creating the properties of the different material objects of the elemental table, it's all very nice, but it doesn't have shit to do with electrodynamics. Electrodynamics is electrons. And that's what I'm talking about, and that's what gravity is. These guys use those equations to engineer a device that later flattened two cities and Japan. Yeah, and remember Einstein said, the odds of you breaking the nucleus of the atom is like a shooting sparrows while blindfolded in your underpanties. Or some kind of crap like that, right? So was he God then? Was Einstein God then when he got that answer wrong? Like preposterously wrong? Like 15 months later they split the fucking atom? Okay. Today the photon is understood to be a boson. Well, who the fuck goddamn cares about your little silly names for all your little silly party, because you're little happy and sad and sticky and gooey and all your little baby talk bullshit, okay? That's what it is. It's baby talk bullshit. You're not making a counter argument to the fact that Feynman was wrong to compare photons to raindrops, are you? No, so give me that argument, or shut the fuck up. Alright, there was criticisms made of this, whatever it is, Sage theory of photon pressure. Two fucking objections. One had to do with thermodynamics, or the creation of heat. I have disposed of that. The other had to do with Feynman's little pussy bullshit argument where he just says, well, if you run into the rain, more rain's going to hit your face. And it was a stupid argument that didn't recognize the fact that photons don't work that way. Alright, anyway. You are using YouTube to babble incoherently. Now, you haven't made a coherent argument, not one on this subject. Fuckhead. Today, a photon is under the boson in the electromagnetic position of the Standard Model, which itself is relativistic field theory. Well, again, that's why I don't have much use for the Standard Model, and I don't really give a rat's ass about it, and it doesn't have a fucking thing to do with the fact that you're using bent space as a placeholder for the truth. Okay, yes, bent space mimics a convergence, but the convergence is being created by pressure on the outside, not pressure on the inside. Okay, outside pressure is forcing things together, so to speak, forcing by converting its velocity, and it's not happening the other way around. So you just picked the wrong eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Okay, you picked mo, and it's really eeny that is the right answer. Stupid fuck. Alright, yeah. Incoherently about a subject of which you know absolutely nothing about. Well, fuck you. I think I obviously know more than you. Because again, defend Feynman then. Defend Feynman's comparison of photons to raindrops. Go ahead, let me hear your defense. Go ahead, fuckhead. And then go ahead and explain Einstein's paradox of the mirror in the moving train, you know, and explain to me how, what viewpoint, from what point of view it would be possible to see those two events as simultaneous. Go ahead, show it to me, fuckhead. Alright, I have been following you on the internet since 2007. I used to genuinely respect you. You are crazier than ever before. Your channel is turning into a disaster. Well, fuck you. Who cares? You're an asshole. I have wasted nearly an hour of my life listening to this half-crooked, ranting, disconnected nonsense about photonic pressure. Well, again, it was the theory, okay, of gravity. Okay, Newton liked it. It was the theory until they allowed it to be destroyed by two stupid notions that they couldn't fix. Okay, Newton had no way of understanding that energy was more complicated, and there was this thing called, you know, angular momentum. You know, I mean, he didn't understand gravity entirely. I mean, as much as he did understand, he really didn't know about the whole, like, you know, if you asked him about going to the moon or something, he might not get the thing that you could use the moon as a gravity. You know, you could use the moon's gravity to maintain your velocity and shoot yourself back to Earth. He might not. I don't know if he did or didn't, but it doesn't. The point is they allowed a perfectly viable theory to be destroyed by naysaying jickwits like you. Alright, and I'm just pointing out that you fuckwits, you stupid motherfucking cunt bastards with your phantasmagorical unicorn theories of reality, okay, have broken physics. For 100 years, physics has been broken by a bunch of religious kooks, Mr. Hoodie, okay, and that's what you are. You're a fucking religious kook. Alright, let's see. Moving on. Alright, so Superior Mind Guy. I haven't seen him in a long time. Love the clarity of your explanation. Most people should be able to understand this. Yes, they should be able to. It's a little, look, it gets, you know, there are going to be like 100 steps to, you know, when you put it all together. It'd be 100 things. And so, yeah, managing 100 concepts is always a little bit difficult. But I mean, just simple ones like, okay, there's a difference between photons that are next to each other and photons separated by a wavelength. You know, these little important things. That there's this idea that, yeah, light doesn't have momentum beyond its own momentum. Beyond its own, I'm going from here to there in a straight line, and I can't be doing something else also. Yeah. Okay, I note that most people won't recognize this for what it is, which is a mechanical description of how constituents of the universe are actually interacting. Correct. The technical details of which constituents are doing what the precise mathematics are for the phenomena that arise from these types of mechanics are not necessary to understand the principle of the mechanics themselves. Well, look, Feynman sort of made this argument, right? I mean, it'd be really nice, he was like, oh, look, it'd be really nice if that model worked. Because, yeah, the model just makes it obvious. You don't need to do all this complex math, you just punch it into the model. You just observe how big something is, and then you know how far away it is, kind of a thing almost. You know, you can use the model to describe the formula. you can have a visual representation of the formula in the model, and then you just change the numbers in your model and it does the formula for you. That kind of thing. So there's real advantage to having a working model that you can use to model different, changes in the dynamics. So yeah, it works. I remember back in the day I made computer sim, which showed my friends how particle, of which was a sum of many vectorial forces, were averaged in some out. Okay, so he's just talking about the fact that he made some sort of life simulation. We make a cell or something, and it wobbles and it starts to get out of control and does all kinds of simple things, even though it's made out of simple things in a way. So it's like electrons creating waves, because electrons start to get eccentric. They start not going in a circle, and so they get wavy. But photons don't. Photons go from A to B in a straight fucking line. Anyway, unless they have their angular momentum changed. People are so stupid. Alright, so I think that's enough for this video. So yeah, Puro made some little raggy comment. But that's all. These people, like I said, they don't have any real comment. Oh, look, we got a same here from the Rick guy. Same here. Mendham had some really good videos about evolution. That's why I try to give him input. When he put this video on complaining that nobody responded to his magnetism. But if he's going to call somebody an asshole, I'm going to get all hurt feelings. I have to go run to my mommy because I'm a little pussy. I can call people assholes, I can call people ignorant, I can call people stupid, I can call them uninformed, I can call them all kinds of things, but when they call me something, I'm a fucking hypocrite, and have a whiny little pussy fit. Yeah, well, fuck you, asshole. Again, you're rude, obnoxious, pompous, arrogant motherfucker. And you got no fucking thermal suit to go with your fucking job description. You think you can insult other people and that you're Teflon man. And nobody can make nothing stick to you. Well, fuck you. I'm going to try out that theory. He has no one to blame but himself if nobody rational responds anymore. No, the whole fucking civilization is quite obviously broken. It can't do anything reasonable and rational, and so it's no big surprise that a bunch of pussy physicists have got it wrong, because they jumped on the first unicorn that came screaming by. The first thing that looked like a God theory, right? Relativity. Yeah, they jumped on it. Typical. Especially since he has neither the credentials nor resources to entice a response. Well, of course I do have the resources. Again, I said it overtly. How can you say this 19 minutes ago when in 2 videos in a row now I have offered cash prizes, substantial cash prizes? How much do you think you actually have to pay a physicist for 1 day's work? What do you think the price tag should be? What, you think they should get $1 million a day or something? What do you think their reasonable price tag for one of these deGrasse Tyson pukes? What do you think CNN pays them? I'll pay what CNN will pay. I mean, I'm sure they do some research before they go on CNN so they don't look stupid. Yeah. Fucker. Fuck you. Anyway, okay, now I'm done. So until next time, such.